Have you ever stood alone on a hill surrounded on all sides, knowing the sun might not rise for you again? I have. And I can still smell the burnt eggs from the mortars. I can still feel the damp earth shaking underneath me. And I can still hear the silence before it all began. We had set up on a rocky hill near the Cambodian border. I had 473 Vietnamese Rangers with me, and 4 American advisors. I was the senior man, Sergeant First Class, 8 months in country. The jungle was my second skin. But that night, something was wrong. Dead wrong. The jungle was too quiet. No birds, no monkeys, not even insects. And when the jungle goes silent in Vietnam, it means someone else is breathing in it. I told the others, start digging, now. But they laughed. They called me old man. I was 24. So I took my 2 bodyguards, cowboys we called them, and I told them, dig a hole, big enough for 3. Don't wait. Then I slid down the hill alone, blew us a landing zone, just in case. That's when I heard it. Thump, thump, thump. 12 mortars all in the air. I sprinted up that hill as fast as my legs could carry me, and when I got to the top, my foxhole, the only one that had been dug, was already full. The battalion commander, his RTO, a young lieutenant named Green. The mortars hit, one landed directly in that hole. Green was gone, the commander too. And just like that, I became the last man standing in the headquarters element. No warning, no orders, just silence and the smell of cordite. We weren't just under attack. We were surrounded, outnumbered 10-1, and we were going to have to fight, not for victory, but to see the sun again. This was how the siege began. I wasn't born into strength. I was born into silence, the kind that creeps into a room after the shouting ends, the kind that teaches you how to disappear, even when you're standing in plain sight. My name is Michael Rourke. I was born in Henderson, Kentucky. By the time I was 5, I'd already lost both parents. My father walked out when I was 4. My mother died in a car accident a year later. I spent the rest of my childhood bouncing from one house to another, never long enough to hang a photograph. But when I was 9 years old, everything changed. I saw paratroopers jumping from a C-130 over Fort Campbell, men falling from the sky like they owned the earth beneath them. That was the first time I said, that has to be me. So on my 17th birthday, I walked into a recruiter's office, signed a contract that guaranteed me a slot at airborne school. 3 weeks later, I was running drills at Fort Ord, California. Mud, cold, sandbags, and a voice in my head that said, this is the first thing in your life no one can take away. From there, I earned my Ranger tab, not because I was fearless, but because I couldn't afford to fail. Failure meant going back to nothing, and nothing wasn't an option. My first assignment was Okinawa. I met my wife there, trained hard, fought harder. Then came Vietnam. I volunteered to be an advisor, language school, jungle warfare, the full tour. When you're embedded with Vietnamese Rangers, you're not just a guest, you're family. You eat with them, march with them, bleed with them. And the 23rd Ranger Battalion, those were my brothers. They'd just come out of a massacre, wiped out. We rebuilt it, officers, NCOs, all trained from scratch. 8 months later, we were ready. Lean, fast, deadly. So when the call came, Special Forces outpost overrun near the Cambodian border, we didn't hesitate. We moved. Daylight approaching, but night was still ours. We took the high ground just short of the base. That's where the real war began, not against just an enemy force, but against doubt, fear, fatigue, and time. We had no idea then that we were about to fight one of the longest, bloodiest battles of the entire war. But I wasn't afraid, because I wasn't alone. Not yet. The sun barely pierced the canopy that morning. Shadows stretched long and thin across the jungle floor. But it wasn't the light that made the day feel strange. It was the silence. Too quiet, like the earth was holding its breath. My Vietnamese Rangers moved in slow, deliberate motions. No jokes, no chatter, Just the sound of buckles tightening, clips locking, steel brushing against fabric. Something was coming. We all felt it. I made my rounds along the ridge, checked foxholes, repositioned fire teams. Every leaf looked like it could hide a rifle. Every breeze felt like it carried a whisper. Then, it happened. The first shot cracked like a whip through the air. One of our forward scouts dropped. No scream, just a soft collapse into the dirt. Blood soaked into the earth before anyone said a word. "Contact front," I yelled. Our line exploded into gunfire. Muzzle flashes lit the jungle like a strobe. Bullets screamed through leaves and bark, and then mortars, again. This time there were fewer. 8, 10, they were probing us, trying to find our weak side, but we didn't give them one. The ground shook under our boots. Smoke rolled low like fog from hell. I could barely see 2 feet ahead, but I kept moving. Checking wounds, repositioning teams, calming voices that were too young to be there. By noon, the air stank of copper and sweat. And something else, fear. It's a real smell. You don't forget it once you've known it. I got a call over the radio. Gunships were on the way. I grabbed smoke, green canisters, and sprinted to the clearing. Rounds snapped past my ears. A branch above me shattered. But I didn't stop. I popped the smoke, waved the choppers in. 2 slicks and a cobra hovered like gods above the tree line. Rockets spat from the cobra's mouth. Fire and thunder rolled through the valley. Our wounded were loaded fast, some conscious, some not. But it wasn't over, not even close. By nightfall, the water ran out. We rationed sips like gold. I caught dew off branches, scraped droplets into my helmet, passed it down the line. It wasn't enough. The men started chewing bamboo to fake the sensation of drinking. A few collapsed from heat and exhaustion. I told them stories to keep them awake, to keep them sane. That's when one of my rangers, a quiet kid named Bao, tugged my sleeve. "Captain," he whispered, "they're digging." I dropped to the ground, pressed my ear to the dirt, and there it was, scraping, soft, deliberate. Sappers coming from underneath. We had no claymores left, no grenades, nothing, just rifles and each other. So we waited. Every breath was a countdown, every blink a prayer. Then it happened. An explosion from beneath. The ground lifted in a brown burst of earth and screams. 3 of our men gone in a heartbeat. The enemy poured through the breach like floodwater. I grabbed the radio. "Enemy inside the perimeter. Repeat, inside the perimeter." Gunships roared in again. We popped flares. The jungle lit up like a battlefield from another world, and we fought, hand to hand, knife to rifle. No room for fear. Just survival. We held the hill, but just barely. Bodies lay twisted across the ridge. Blood seeped into the roots. Ammo was down to the last magazines. I sat behind a tree, hands shaking, ears ringing, and all I could think was, this isn't over. Not yet. Dawn didn't come with peace. It came with thunder. Enemy mortars screamed from beyond the tree line. Again. And this time they found their mark. Our southern perimeter vanished in a plume of smoke and dirt. Debris and bodies flew into the air. The screams that followed were sharper than any shell. I sprinted through the chaos, boots slipping on blood-slick rock. Sergeant Land was dragging a man with half a leg left. He didn't flinch, didn't cry, just said, "We hold." We were outnumbered, outgunned, exhausted, but we held. By mid-morning, I'd lost track of time, lost track of days. There was only before the hill, and now. We hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. We chewed tree bark, tasted iron, drank whatever water we could catch from the morning dew. My tongue was raw from licking leaves. My lips cracked and bleeding. One of the younger rangers' tongue lost it, started rocking back and forth, muttering about his sister, his house and Hugh. I put my hand on his shoulder and whispered, "She's waiting. You hear me? So we hold." His eyes focused again for a second, then drifted, but he stayed. That afternoon, we heard rustling near the north side. Too coordinated for animals, not loud enough for an advance. I crawled out with 2 others, my boots silent, my heart a hammer. We spotted them, 6 men in black crawling low, sappers, each carried satchels, explosives. I raised my rifle, fired first, the jungle erupted in fire. We killed 3. The rest vanished. But we knew what was coming. They were softening us up, preparing. I radioed for resupply, artillery, air support, anything. The reply? Negative. Priority support engaged elsewhere. So we waited, again, with nothing but 2 clips of ammo per man, no grenades, no food, 1 canteen shared between 5. The sun fell, and with it came the second assault. A whistle pierced the night. Then came the voices, enemy voices, shouting, chanting, a surge from the darkness. We lit flares, the sky turned blood red. Dozens, maybe hundreds of silhouettes rushed up the hill, bayonets glinting, eyes wild. We fired everything we had, shot until the barrels smoked. When the bullets ran out, we used knives, shovels, hands. It wasn't combat, it was survival. I remember grabbing a rifle, empty, and swinging it like a bat. Knocked a man down, stomped him until he stopped moving. Next to me, Bao tackled another, screaming like a banshee. Blood sprayed from somewhere. I didn't even know whose it was. And still they came. We fell back inch by inch, behind a fallen log, behind a mound of earth. I crawled to the radio, clicked it on, anyone, any unit. This is Vulture Hill, we are surrounded, out of ammunition, immediate air support requested. Static, then copy Vulture Hill, diverting gunships from Zone 4, ETA 6 minutes. 6 minutes, it felt like a lifetime. We held on with fists, tossed rocks, used bayonets like spears, and then the sky lit up. Gunships screamed in overhead, spitting death from their sides. Tracer fire swept the ridge. The enemy fell back. Some didn't make it. We slumped behind what cover we had left, alive for now. I looked around. The hill was silent again, this time with a different kind of silence. Not dread, not warning, just absence. Corpses littered the brush, our own and theirs. Smoke hung like a ghost over the treetops. One of the rangers, Min, crawled up to me, his arms soaked in blood. He handed me a half-empty canteen. "You'll need it," he said. I took 1 sip and passed it on. That night, I didn't sleep. None of us did. We waited for the 3rd wave. We knew it would come. And we knew it would be the worst yet. They came at us in waves. Not 1, not 2. But wave after wave, like the jungle itself was pushing them forward. It started just before dawn on the 2nd day. The first assault hit the western slope. Their mortars found our positions fast. 1 round blew apart our communications post. Another hit just 20 feet from where I was kneeling, bandaging a ranger's shredded arm. He didn't make it. I didn't have time to mourn. The Vietnamese Rangers, my Rangers, held that side like demons. They fought from tree roots, from craters, from holes barely big enough to crawl into. We had no trenches, no real cover. But they didn't break, not once. And when the enemy fell back, they reloaded and came again. By day 3, I'd lost count of the wounded. I ran from hole to hole, dragging supplies, checking pulse after pulse, some still warm, some not. And I remember thinking, how the hell are we still alive? Then the night came, and the jungle went quiet again. That's when they tried to flank us. They hit the eastern perimeter, where I had fewer than 40 men still able to shoot. I called for fire support. A gunship answered, but even with cover, we were almost overrun. 1 ranger grabbed a satchel charge and sprinted straight into their line, took out a dozen before going silent. His name was Bao. He was 19. After that, we pulled back closer to the summit, trading ground for time. I gave my water to a boy no older than my own son. He'd been shot through the leg and wouldn't stop shaking. He gripped my wrist and whispered, "Don't leave me." I didn't. That night, I leaned against a tree, blood on my uniform, lips cracked from thirst. I looked out at the mist, listening for one more thump. But there was nothing. Only stillness. We were out of ammo, no food, no water. Most of my men couldn't even walk. And I knew the next attack would be the last. So I stood up, and I said, if they come again, we meet them face to face. No one argued. But the attack never came. They didn't expect us to hold that hill, and when we did, they backed off. At sunrise, I saw them retreating into the tree line, tired, beaten, like ghosts disappearing into smoke. And just like that, the siege was over. But the story wasn't. When the sun finally broke through the trees, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like silence. Heavy. We gathered what was left. 41 wounded Rangers. No one else was walking. I radioed for extraction. No answer. Then a whisper on the line. One of our pilots diverted, flying low, hot, no authorization. He said, "Give me your position. I'll find you." I gave him coordinates. He replied with a short, "Got it," and then nothing but rotor blades in the distance. When that first chopper appeared through the morning haze, I swear every man looked up like it was a vision from heaven. Gunships circled us, providing cover as we staggered down the hill. We moved crater to crater, blast mark to blast mark, like stepping stones through hell. They got us out. All of us. At the field hospital, I didn't sleep, didn't eat. My tongue was raw from licking dew off jungle leaves. My lips cracked so deep they bled, and when they brought me food, I just stared at it. My stomach had forgotten how to be hungry. The nurses asked me questions. I gave them numbers. 473 Rangers on the hill. 41 walked out. Only 2 of us, me and the battalion sergeant major, weren't wounded. I still don't know how. We didn't stay in one place, we joked, didn't give death a fixed address. Weeks later, I visited the Vietnamese hospital. Some of the boys smiled when they saw me. Some cried. One saluted with a bandaged hand, his eyes full of something I'll never be able to explain. They didn't care I was American. They cared I was there. I was told later we annihilated the enemy battalions, that we held the hill against impossible odds, that I would be recommended for the Medal of Honor. But I didn't feel like a hero. I was a soldier who did his job. A man who stayed when staying felt like madness. If you ask me what I remember most, it's not the firefights, not the medals, not even the choppers coming through the smoke. It's the moment I looked into the eyes of those boys, exhausted, bleeding, and saw no fear, just trust. And I'll carry that weight until the day I die. If this story moved you, if it made you feel what those soldiers felt, even for a moment, don't let it end here. Hit the like button so more people hear their courage. Subscribe for more real untories that deserve to be remembered. And in the comments, tell us what moment hit you the hardest. Because these stories aren't just history. They're the heartbeat of sacrifice. And as long as we speak their names, they live on.